Hey guys, let's talk about virtual warehouses. Now, if you remember the architecture of Snowflake, you have three different layers. You have your storage layer, the compute layer, and the cloud services layer. Virtual warehouses make up for the compute layer because a virtual warehouse is what gives you the compute power that you need in order to run your operations. And when I say operations, I'm essentially talking about execution of your SQL queries, or be ingesting huge amounts of data into Snowflake tables, or even extracting data outside of Snowflake, let's say to one of your storage buckets. Now, each of these operations heavily rely on the type of warehouse that you choose to run them on. So you can think of a virtual warehouse or a warehouse as a server, which provides you with the compute power. It's basically a combination of resources like CPU, memory, and temporary storage. Now, these warehouses come in sizes ranging from extra small to 5 times extra large. There can be two types of virtual warehouses. One is a single cluster warehouse, which is pretty straightforward. It's like basically saying create a single node cluster, right? It just has one node. The concept is similar to a single cluster warehouse, just one node, one cluster. The second one, which is the most important one, is the multi-cluster warehouse. Now, when it comes to creating a virtual warehouse, which we'll be doing a bit later, there are certain parameters that you need to understand and are extremely crucial. The first one is the maximum cluster. It's the maximum number of warehouses that Snowflake will spin up during an operation. The next one is the minimum number of cluster, which is the default number of warehouses that Snowflake will spin up while creating a warehouse. So let's say you want to create a single cluster warehouse. In this case, your minimum cluster is going to be equal to 1 and the max cluster is also 1. So just one node, right? But if you want to create a multi-cluster warehouse, your min cluster should be greater than or equal to 1 and the max cluster has to be greater than 1. So that's when it can scale out and become a multi-cluster warehouse. Now, when it comes to a multi-cluster warehouse, there are two modes in which it can be executed. The first one is the maximize mode and the second one is the auto scale mode. So maximize mode theoretically means you're telling Snowflake max out at the time of creation of a warehouse. So let's say your min cluster is equal to 2 and max cluster is equal to 2. Now what this means is while you create the warehouse with this setting or with these values, Snowflake is going to create a warehouse with 2 clusters already by default. So that's why it's maximized. We're going to max it out. Auto scale basically means you're telling Snowflake start with the minimum number, which is 1 in this case, and auto scale up to the maximum value, which is 2 in this case. So I hope the modes are clear. The next parameter is the scaling policy, which is extremely crucial. There's two types of scaling policies. One is standard and the other one is economy. The standard one is the default one. If you create standard as your scaling policy, the standard one prevents queuing up of operations by starting additional warehouses. And the economy one conserves the credits by favoring keeping running warehouses fully loaded rather than starting additional warehouses. Now we'll see what this means. Let's say you create a multi-cluster warehouse with minimum cluster 1 and maximum cluster 3, and your scaling policy is standard, right? And let's say you choose extra small. So picture this scenario. You have 2 queries running on this warehouse. Now everything is fine. You just have 1 cluster up and running, all right? Now next, you submit or you write a complex SQL query. Now what happens here? Snowflake or the system is going to wait for 20 seconds. It'll see if the first 2 queries have finished execution. If they haven't finished execution, this is what happens. It'll spin up the second warehouse, all right? And the complex query, SQL query that you executed is going to be executed in the second one, not the first one. Let's say 40 seconds later, you execute another SQL query, which is pretty complex. So the second warehouse is still able to handle the load. Now let's see what happens. A huge data ingestion pipeline comes in a minute later. So what's going to happen now, it's going to wait for 20 seconds. It'll realize the 2 complex queries haven't finished execution yet. So what does it do? Just keep in mind the max cluster value is 3 here. So it means it can scale out up to 3 clusters. This is what will happen. The ingestion pipeline will be executed by spinning up another warehouse. So this is how standard scaling policy works. When it comes to economy, let's consider the exact same example. Your min cluster is 1, max cluster is 3, standard scaling policy is economy. So you have 2 SQL queries running. Now the third one comes in, which is pretty complex. Now, what will happen if you selected your scaling policy to be economy? It's not going to spin up a new warehouse right away. This is going to wait for at least 6 minutes. Now the question that'll be asked is, will the warehouse be busy for at least 6 minutes? What does this mean? It means, will the first 2 queries, SQL query 1 and 2, are these 2 going to keep this warehouse busy for at least 6 minutes? Now if the answer to this question is yes, this is what will happen. The complex query that came in is going to be executed by spinning up a new warehouse. Now let's say 40 seconds later, another complex SQL query comes in. Now Snowflake realizes that the second one is still able to handle the load on this warehouse, so nothing happens. Now a huge data ingestion pipeline comes in a minute later. Same question will be asked again. Can the first 2 complex queries keep the second warehouse busy for at least 6 minutes? If the answer is yes, it's going to spin up another warehouse. So this is the difference between standard and economy scaling policies. So I hope all the parameters are clear now. What we're going to do now is go back to the Snowflake UI and create a simple warehouse. Let's click on the warehouse tab over here. Let's click on create. The first one is the name, so I'm just going to call it production underscore warehouse. Let's create a medium-sized warehouse. If you click on the drop down against the size, you'll be able to see the different sizes. Do not worry about the credits. We'll be covering the billing components and what credits actually mean and how they convert to dollars in the next videos. So for now, let's select medium. You already know what max cluster and min cluster means, so I'm going to create a multi-cluster warehouse. If I had to create a single cluster warehouse, you have to select the max cluster to 1, and you'll see all the other options have disappeared because they don't make any sense if you just want to create a single cluster warehouse, right? So let's select 2 now. So I'm going to say min cluster is 1, max cluster is 2, and I'm going to keep the scaling policy to economy. Now, what auto suspend means is that if your warehouse is idle for 5 minutes, let's say, that's when Snowflake will suspend this warehouse. So you pay for what you use, but it's going to still be active for 5 minutes until it actually gets suspended. Now this auto resume checkbox over here basically means every time you execute an SQL query or any other operation, let's say be it a data ingestion pipeline or extraction job or even SQL queries, it's going to automatically resume the warehouse. So auto suspend means the number of minutes for which your warehouse is going to stay idle until it's suspended. So I usually keep it to the minimum value, which is 5, because you can't go beyond below 5. And that's pretty much it. You can actually click on show SQL. You'll get a nice SQL query. You can actually execute this query if you do not want to use the web UI. It comes in handy if you want to automate creation of virtual warehouses. So for now, I'm just going to say close and I'm going to click on finish. Now it takes less than a second to actually create a virtual warehouse. So I hope this was pretty straightforward. You understood the concept of a single cluster warehouse and a multi-cluster warehouse. Next up, we'll be looking at the different billing components in Snowflake. Thanks for watching.